evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of this, the Curtlyn Warner Show. Today, I have a very special guest with me. He goes by the name of Shabaz SK Buchanan. Mr. Buchanan, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, Mr. Buchanan, could you tell the general public who is SK Buchanan?
Well, SK Buchanan is a young kid, originated from out of Maarten in St. Kitts. Spent like my first 14 years there, was introduced to basketball, played in the junior division, then moved to St. Maarten about age 15, and, just really took basketball real serious, devoted a lot of time, had a lot of mentors, people that I really, admired, and just took talking from. And I was able to excel here locally and regionally in the sport of basketball. And basically that's where most folks would know me from, in the arena of basketball.
So who was some of your mentor in St. Maarten? You said most of your time that you get your professional field of basketball was from St. Maarten. Who was some of the person that was instrumental in this?
Well, it started in the St. Peter's district. I had people like Louis Jeffers that took me under their wings early and just really always had a lot of confidence in me. Always told me, like, even though you're younger, you got to represent us. People like Louis Jeffers, William Barry, admired people like Maarten, Hodge, very close friend of mine, brother, Siegfried Hodge. Those guys, Mark B. Edwards, Gerald James, those guys were older than me, but they always had confidence and always encouraged me to just keep pushing. So the names that I just called were some of my mentors.
Tell us something about your early stage of after arriving to St. Maarten and started to play basketball. What was it like coming from St. Kitts and being in St. Maarten, playing among the local guys?
Well, honestly, really wasn't much different, because basketball is like universal. It's what I knew, so it was just a natural progression for me. I was always a tall kid, so usually when you're tall, the older guys would look, at you and have you fill out the numbers, so to speak. So being a tall kid definitely was a plus, but then also having some natural ability and just talent was able to kind of separate me from some of the other kids in my age to play with the bigger guys. I was blessed enough to be given the God-given talent, I think, in my opinion, to play basketball. So it was just a natural progression for me, just to make myself available, and my talent kind of saw me through.
In the field of basketball, what was your highest achievement?
Highest achievement, I would say representing St. Maarten was, one of my highest achievements. Being recognized regionally as one of the better players, around the Leeward Islands, and just being looked at sometimes by scouts when we would go to tournaments like Aruba, Puerto Rico. We traveled to the States to play, and just getting recognition from scouts and coaches abroad.
Let me take you back for a bit. You said you're originally from St. Kitts, but
Yes.
you played professional basketball for the St. Maarten national team. That's correct?
Well, I won't say professional. I played nationally. Professional is when you're getting paid. It wasn't professional because it wasn't, a paid venture or whatever, but we played at the highest level that we could play on in this region, which was like Leeward Island Basketball Association, LIBA, and also being looked at to represent St. Maarten in like the OECS games. So that was the peak of my career, besides traveling to the States and different islands around the region.
What was it like then playing for St. Maarten, and then if St. Maarten has to play St. Kitts? What was it like then?
Again, for me, whatever uniform that I was wearing, I was given 150% to that. Even though St. Kitts was my birthland to speak, St. Maarten to say it kind of put me on the map. And I always loved playing with the guys here. Always represented like it was my own island. So it was never an issue of me selling out or not giving 100% to St. Maarten. And I think my teammates that played with me back then could attest to that, where they knew that they didn't have to look over their shoulder and wonder what I would be doing, even though I played my natural country of birth.
Nice. Now, what was one of your greatest moments during your time of playing at the Labour level? Labour, which is the Leeward Island Basketball Tournament. What was your greatest achievement then?
I mean, I would say that looking back and just recollecting right now, playing in St. Kitts definitely was one of my highest points because that's where I originated from, and to go back home and represent another island, my adopted island, on the highest level for us here as basketball players, that was one of my highest achievements, just being able to go back home and represent and perform at a very high level, and just having people that grew up with me, people that, you know, heard about me but never seen me, but they heard about SK, this dude is from St. Kitts, and having them come to me and say, boy, like, we let one get away. You know, that's to me the ultimate sign of respect, when people come to you and give you that type of, you know, admiration and praise. So I would say St. Kitts was one of my highest achievement. Also places like Antigua and Tortola in the BVI, because those places, like, they got a strong history of just kicking out players, great players. And when those players will come to you and give you props and give you the respect, and you earn the respect, not just they gave it to you. Those players will tell you, like, straight up, like, yo, you know, you're a really good player, and they really admire your game. Those were definitely some of the highest points of my career playing here.
Nice. If you have to choose one of the rival countries that you played on the highest level, which country you say was most competitive towards St. Maarten back then?
That's personal to me, or
Personal to you, or St. Maarten. You've been playing for the St. Maarten team. Which team you know that when the St. Maarten team goes up at them, this is one of our biggest rival?
I don't know if rival is the correct word, but we had some competitors that kind of underestimated us a lot, and we wanted to show them, like, the St. Maarten of old wasn't the same St. Maarten that they would see in some of these Liga tournaments. Like, the teams, the St. Maarten national teams from the 80s were seen as just a floor mat for Liga. And then when I got with again, players like Siegfried Hodge and Louis Jeffers and, you know, Gerald James and those guys, it was like a new era of players from St. Maarten. We wasn't just the walking mat of Liga anymore. And we didn't have one team to say that we had a personal vendetta against, but we wanted to show all the teams in Liga that we're not the same St. Maarten of the 80s, where you would just see us on the schedule and put a tick, like you would just walk over us. So it was anybody that came up against us, we wanted to show them that it's a new stock of guys, it's a new era, and we're not just a walkover on the schedule. So it wasn't just one particular team, it was whoever we faced.
Let's talk about coaching. Back then, who was your coach and who you rate as one of the number one coach that coached you in the past?
Well, for me, it started in St. Kitts when I was introduced to basketball. The, you know, well-known James Bauman Hanley. He was the first coach that took me under his wing and really saw that I potentially had talent to play basketball. Unfortunately, I didn't get to play under him for too long because of, you know, financial and his family reasons. We migrated to St. Maarten, so I played under James Bauman Hanley for about a year before leaving to come to St. Maarten. And then once I got here, my most influential coach for, you can see, most of my career here was Louis Richardson. He was very instrumental for me as far as, like, my growth with basketball here. You know, even though I had natural ability, he taught me a lot of stuff that I probably would not have known on my own. And especially defensively, He was a very defensive-minded coach and team-oriented coach. He was fair. He would not treat a star player better than the last person on the bench. So for me, that was something that I had to kind of adjust to. Because sometimes when you got talent, some coaches will show favoritism just to keep you, around them. But with Coach Louis Richardson, he wasn't about, oh, because you're the best player, he'll bend the rules for you. A rule for one was a rule for all. So he was the most influential coach that I had here locally in St. Maarten.
All right. Now you have switched this switch around from being a player to a coach. You are now currently living in the US. Tell us a little bit about that.
As far as like basketball? Or
Basketball wise.
Okay. Well, basketball was always my passion. Played for many years. At some point, everything has a shelf life. We can't play forever. But even after finished playing basketball, I always had the passion. I had the knowledge, acquired knowledge by just keep reading and looking at the games and just staying, in the whole arena. So I with my wife, we started like a church team, my wife's church, and that's where it started coaching in the States in the church league. I was fortunate enough to win probably about 4 championships.
Wow.
In that league with a team that was brand new to the league. So I think a lot of the knowledge that I acquired over the years and playing kind of went into just pouring it out there into those kids. And as I said, I always had great mentors, and I was taught the game of basketball the right way. I came up in a really good era where people was willing to pass knowledge onto you, and if you were willing to listen, you could achieve. So I was talented, but I was always a great listener, and I would think a great teammate. Now that's probably not for me to say, but my former teammates, but I always thought of myself as a great teammate and a great listener and a team player. So packaging all that into being out into the States, I think that helped me a lot to speak to kids, to be able to converse to kids on more than basketball and just getting them to see that basketball is just one aspect of life, but you can use basketball as a tool to venture off into different things. And I think they took to that and they felt comfortable playing for me. So from the church league, I was recognized by now different local rec leagues in Durham, North Carolina. So I moved from the church league and I started coaching in different rec leagues. I started doing like training camps. I went as far as coaching in AAU basketball, which is a pretty big circuit in the States. All these stars that we see on the NBA level, they all went through the AAU system. And I was fortunate enough to coach on that level.
Wow.
So basically that was the peak of my coaching career in the States. I also coach, as most people locally here would know, we come to the Battle of the Fittest like every year, coaching the USA Showtime team, which is, a growing league, but that's all my coaching.
Let me take you to this Showtime. You now have your own team and it's called Showtime. Why Showtime?
Because Showtime started locally here in St. Maarten, and it was a name that I always loved because, again, people that know me knew the type of basketball I played. I played the basic, but I also played with a flair, like as far as like Magic Johnson was my idol growing up. And if anyone knows Magic Johnson and the Lakers, they were called Showtime in the 80s. So I took the name Showtime because of Magic Johnson and the Showtime Lakers and made that my own here locally. And we played here in the local league for a few years before I moved on to the States. And then I was in the US. So for me, Showtime was, to say, my baby that I kind of created with a bunch of guys from my district where we lived in St. Peter's. So being in the States, I just added the USA Showtime. But it's really Showtime, but wherever I go, Showtime goes.
Nice. So now you have this team called USA Showtime. You guys just take part in a tournament that called Last Man Standing. Your team was called the USA Showtime. You've been playing basketball in St. Martin for a number of years now with the USA Showtime. You've been to Battle of the Fittest, and now this year during the pandemic, you have been to what we call Last Man Standing that recently played. This trophy standing right here is the championship trophy that you and your team acquired during that tournament. You won that championship with the USA Showtime team. Could you tell us a little bit about that tournament?
It was a tournament that was put together on short notice. As we know, we're in the COVID era where nothing is certain, because at any time COVID can just shut it down. COVID is very rampant right now. So it was just a joy for me that the organizers were able to pull this tournament off in these times. And as far as taking part in the tournament, it was a pleasure. I was able to showcase my son, Amari Thomas, in this tournament. He was able to become MVP of the tournament. It was, it wasn't the battle of the fittest. It was on a smaller scale. It wasn't the same turnout, again, because of COVID, but it was a really good experience playing in that tournament.
In the just concluded basketball tournament that was held recently, your Showtime team has emerged champ, and this is the trophy that is in front of us. What is the feeling like now as you crowned champion of this said tournament?
Well, it's always a great feeling to be crowned champion in everything that you participate in. That's the goal. When you set out on any venture, it's always, fulfilling to complete the task at hand. So winning the championship was definitely a joyful moment for myself, for my family, for everybody that put in work. It was just fulfilling for everybody involved. So yes, it was a great feeling to become champion of Last Man Standing.
In the recent tournament that you played a few days back, you lost to the only loss you had was to the St. Maarten team. What was it like going up against the St. Maarten team, the St. SXM Dream Chasers?
It was definitely a great challenge, but I think we lost because you never want to say like you lost because you didn't do this or you didn't do that. But I think we were definitely short staffed. We had a few players injured, and that really cost us. If we had more bodies, I think the outcome would have been different. And also, we had about 4 players that got fouled out that night. So, besides having 3 players in street clothes that wasn't able to play because of minor injuries, we also had 4 players fouled out. So that contributed, I think, big time in our loss. But I think St. Maarten did what they were supposed to do, and they won the game fair and square. But I think if we were at full strength, we definitely would have won that game.
And you lost that game by 1 point.
Yes, we lost by 1 point in overtime. We actually ended up playing with 4 players at the end of overtime.
Wow. Now you defeated your rival team, which is the Tortola team. You defeated that team, and you've been playing against that team for a number of years now, which is the big bad BVI team. How was your feeling then to dethrone this team?
As far as rivals, I won't say they were a rival. To have a rivalry, it has to be more balanced. And as we know, we've never won the tournament. BVI has won the tournament, I think, either 3 or 4 times. So I won't say it was a fair rivalry. They're definitely a worthy competitor, but to become a rivalry, it needs to be more balanced. It's one-sided. We never won. They won 4 times. So we don't have any one rival in this tournament. We're a team that try to beat everybody, and some we come out fortunate enough to do, and others we don't. But BVI is definitely one of the better teams, and they always pose a threat. So beating them was, again, a fulfilling moment. It wasn't the original BVI squad as we know, but they carry the name. So beating Tortola definitely, has to be a good feeling.
All right. Let me ask this question. Will you be back next year with your USA Showtime team to defend this championship once Last Man Standing kicks off?
as we sit here now, yes, that's the plan. Again, with COVID being what it is, like we're living in some uncertain times right now, so there's nothing guaranteed. But if you were to ask me, as you're asking right now, I would say yes. We definitely like to be back to defend our championship or to take part in the Battle of the Fittest next summer.
You are one of the very popular player that played the game on the island as I speak, a legend that played the game. Now, let me ask you this question. What do you think about the younger generation playing basketball now?
In terms of what exactly? Like,
And the style they play, more people go for 3-point shooting. Before it was a more big man game. Now it's more 3-pointers.
I think the game has evolved to more small ball because players like Steph Curry. Steph Curry has changed the game with the way how he shoots, and you have a lot of kids right now that try to emulate his style of play and try to shoot more. Even with the way how big men are playing now, a lot of big men are not playing with their back to the basket anymore. You know, right now you got a lot of big men playing the game. They call them stretch fours and stretch fives, meaning they stretch the court and they shoot a lot of threes. So the game is being played more on the perimeter right now, where it's outside and not low down like in the 70s and 80s when you had people more banging in the post. The game was more physical. I think the rules also has changed to, you know, to the offensive players. Before you could hand check, you know, now you can hardly breathe on an offensive player without them calling a foul. So I think with that, you don't get the same type of physical play because of the rules being changed and because of the way how guys are shooting now. So the game has evolved into more of an outside game than an inside physical game.
I'm going to ask you this simple question. You've been you played basketball in St. Maarten over a number of years. Would you be able to name the 10 best player in your era of basketball
10.
While you played in St. Maarten?
That's a high number. 10. You said the 10 best players I played with in my time?
Yeah, in your era.
And, okay, I'll try to name as many as possible. Definitely players like Seafried Hodge, Louis Jeffers again, those two, to me, William Barry, those three players were my biggest, to say inspiration and support. They always had confidence in me, even me as a youngster, being much younger than them. It's like they passed the baton on to me, telling me like, it's my time. You know, they ignited a fire in me that I probably didn't even have it in myself. And by them doing that, I was able to excel into, one of the better players. So, what everybody said. But those three, William Barry, Seafried Hodge, Louis Jeffers, also Bear Snoop Edwards, he was also instrumental for one reason, if not any other. When I came in, he was the national team point guard. And he told me, he just handed me the torch and told me it was my time. He never looked to, outcast me. He never looked to not showed me anything that he acquired or learned over the years. He was ready to just say, you know what, I've been doing this for a while. You're new upcoming talent. This is your time. It's your show now. Like, he handed me the keys to the car. And I took over as the national point guard for a number of years from him. So I always have to pay homage to people like Bear Snoop Edwards because of his unselfishness and willingness to just give me the keys to the car and tell me go ahead. So I guess we got 4 players: Bear, Jeffers, Barry, and Hyde, Seafried. We also had Gerald James. He was an easygoing guy, but very deadly shooter and strong defensive player. Physical, never got tired. So he was always somebody you wanted in the foxhole with you because he'll give it his all. He wasn't a big talker, but he was very instrumental in a lot of teams that we played with over the years. So that would be 5. Then I'll go to players that came up with me, like Alvin Ogdebar, Angelo Flanders. That would be 7. We also had players. Who else? That Clive Garrio was 1. You say 10. 10 is a very high number. I think. Yeah, we got 8. Players like Maarten Hodge, because of his rugged style of play. You know, he had the heart of 10 beasts. Like he did not fear, he did not back down from any challenge. Maarten Hodge from the St. Peter's Tricklers. So he was definitely a player that I admired because of his big heart. Let me see, a few more players. We had some players like, who else? It's so many players, and I don't want to ruffle any feathers, but it's hard to remember everyone. You know, I had players from the down street area, players that came before me, like Tempo, you know, those guys. Alvin. Yeah, Alvin. Who else we had? We had players like Nasio Ponteflek from Trickers. He was just a steady guy. He wasn't flashy. He didn't score a lot of points, but he was a rock on the boards. You know, we had players like from the Colby area, like Manny. I forgot his last name, Big Manny. He was tough also. We had players from Sucker Garden like Miguel Fleming, Smokes, you know. That's just a few players that I could remember. About 10 players.
Let's take it a notch now. Let's take it to the NBA. Now, everyone in the world has the debate of the Michael Jordan, LeBron era. Who do you think is the GOAT? LeBron James or Michael Jordan?
For me, I never want to say like put them in the same boat because they're two different players. But if I needed one player in any era to be my teammate, I would always choose Michael Jordan because of his tenacity, his will, his drive, and for one other reason, he got to the finals 6 times and he got 6 championships. So he's perfect. He's 6 for 6 in any final situation. So that says a lot to me. If you get to the finals 6 times and you win 6 championships, that shows me the type of player that you are. Not taking anything away from LeBron, because LeBron is a great player in his own rights, but I think LeBron is a different player to Michael Jordan. I think Michael Jordan was more of an assassin, cold-blooded killer. You know, he took people's heart out. Like he left them with no self-confidence. You know, where LeBron now, he's more of a technical type player. He's more of a facilitator. He gets his players involved more. You know, he's been talked about a lot as not taking the big shot at times, where over Jordan's career, for most of his career, he took that shot almost every single time. You know, I won't say every single time because you can remember he passed to Paxson. Paxson knocked down a game shot. Steve Kerr, Craig Hodges. But the majority of the times, he was the man taking the last shot. And a lot of players rate you for that, saying that, you know, you have that killer instinct. So Jordan definitely would be my GOAT because of his perfect playoff run where he was 6 for 6, 6 championships in 6 tries. I think LeBron is about 3 for 8 on 9, which, you know, it's still okay, but you don't meet perfection if someone is 6 for 6. Nice. That carries a lot of weight.
Nice. If you have to name a few of the NBA stars of all time, I wouldn't get into the amount, but just give me a few of the NBA players that you would put in the top, let's say in the top 6 great of all times.
For me, it would start with Magic Johnson again because that's who I kind of like emulated my style of play off of because of his size. He was a big guard. I was considered to be a big guard on our level. So, yeah, Magic Johnson because of his size and the position he played, point guard. When I started watching basketball in the 80s, he was somebody that I always wanted to be like. Just seeing the way how he had that flair, He had that smile. He would share the ball and get everybody involved. I wanted to be that type of player. I wanted to be a player where it wasn't just about me scoring every time. It was about me getting my teammates involved. I think when you got your teammates involved and get everybody a touch, it elevates the play even more than you to just be scoring every time. I think if you get teammates involved and share, players will want to rebound for you, players will take charges for you, and it just makes the whole team all around better. So for one, Magic Johnson, because of his flair and the position that he played, I wanted to be just like Magic, being a big point guard, flashy, Showtime. That's where I get my team name again, off the Showtime Lakers. So Magic Johnson for one. Of course, Michael Jordan, because I think he's the greatest player in basketball history. So Magic. I also like Isaiah Thomas. He was not a big guy, but he was tough, real tough player from the Detroit Pistons. Moving later into the game, Tim Duncan, because again of the way that he played was so methodical and just flawless, almost simple. It almost seemed effortless for him. The way how he did everything, it seemed like they put him in a lab and just created the perfect fundamental type player. He wasn't flary, but he always got the job done. He was a real simple, basic type player. And also with him being originated from the island of St. Croix, I kind of share that, being from the island. So yeah, Tim Duncan definitely was one. LeBron James, again, because of his style of play where he's more of a facilitator, where he gets everybody involved and he can also take over when need be. So yeah, of late, you got players like Luka from the Dallas Mavericks. He's a player to watch. You got Damian Lillard. He's also a player to watch. You got players like AD, Anthony Davis. Also players like Russell Westbrook. Those are just a few of the players that I admire in today's game.
Now, before we come to the end of the program, is there anything you would like to say to your teammates, your past teammates, and your team? You just concluded championship teams. Is there anything you would like to say to those players?
All right, first to the team that we just won this championship with. It was a team that we really just got here and put together in the space of a week, with the exception of my son that traveled with us from the States. Everyone else was local players. So I just really want to thank them for listening, for giving the effort that they did in such short space of time, because they really didn't have to. Even after the tournament, a few of those players hit me up and was like, "Thank you, coach. You were so instrumental in us winning this championship. Everything that you taught us, we try to do." And it was really nice hearing that from the younger guys that never really played organized basketball, but they were talented. So I just want to say to those players, thank you. And for the players that I played with back in my time, I want to thank them for letting me be me, for believing in me, to have me to say lead on a talent level. Like, I was never a leader vocally, because I was always more, you could say, timid and soft spoken. So I was never the vocal leader of any team. I always had Big Daddy Jeffers for that. He was the big dog. He was our enforcer. We knew, like, if anybody would try anything with us, he would go all out to defend us every single time. And it was just a pleasure having somebody like him, knowing that somebody got your back. It kind of helped you to be yourself and to not be afraid of, going out there and playing. So people like him definitely made my game easier, where he laid his body on the line every single game he came to play. He was not a player that looked at the stat sheet for most points or most rebounds. He just wanted to get the job done and know that he protected his younger players, which for me, that kind of helped me to do my thing. So the people like him, the people like Sifri Haas, again, Barry, Mark Bear Edwards, those players were very, very instrumental in my progression as a player here locally. And I want to personally, if they're watching this, thank them. You know, for one, for protecting me, for believing in me, and just not trying to fight against me, but letting my talent, you know, lead with their voice.
What would you say to the general public, in closing, the general public of St. Maarten? What word would you have for the general public of St. Maarten, those that support you over the years?
Again, just gratitude, you know, much thanks. Like, people, you know, work hard and they don't have to come out and support basketball. They got probably a lot more important things that they could do with their money. But the people that came and paid to see us play, it was a pleasure for them, for me, to have them come out and cheer us, whether it was for the local district teams or the national team. It was always a joy looking up and seeing faces sometimes that you don't even know, but calling your name and encourage you and shouting you on. Like, that feeling is like unmatched. Like, when you don't even know someone, but they're shouting your name to the top of their lungs, and you can see the passion that they have. Like, it's always great to have that. So for the general public, thank you for the time that I was here, that, you know, you supported me. And I really believe it was genuine, because I saw it, you know, again, with people that we didn't even speak on the street. But when we got to the auditorium, you would hear SK, you would hear Let's Go, you would hear Come On, you know, these things were very encouraging. And I just want to thank everybody that supported me, supported the teams that I played for. And even people now that support the USA Showtime that comes back here, I guess they have, you know, ties to me in some area that they still feel almost obligated. You know, some of my friends, childhood friends, like Terrence Green, you know, Ricardo Lake, you know, those guys supported me from B Division when I was a youngster, 15, 16 years old. And even though I've migrated to the States and now coming back with USA or coming back with Showtime, those guys don't miss a game every time we come back here. So, and also for you, Cutty, you've always been somebody that was in my corner from the time I landed on this rock. You always believed in me, you always supported me, so give thanks to you as well. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, there we have it. Mr. Shabaz SK Buchanan. It was a pleasure having you on the show, Mr. Buchanan. We look forward to the show all over again. Ladies and gentlemen, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share to the Curtlyn Warner Show. Leave a comment below, and we'll get back to you. Have a great evening.